Hello, everybody. This is Hondo Carpenter, your Las Vegas Raiders beat writer on SI and the host of the Las Vegas Raiders Insider Podcast. Great to be with you today. We're going to spend some time doing a Raiders introspection. I have now watched the film um, from the loss over the weekend on multiple occasions. I think I'm at 4, 5, 6 times. Probably not six because the last time I was being specific, looking at specific situations, so it wasn't an entire watch. But going over it, and several things stood out to me on film. And so we're going to take these introspections because it revealed a lot to me about the Raiders. And I want to make it very abundantly clear. There's no sugarcoating. But I'm also not going to just throw turpentine on the fire because everybody's mad. One of the easiest things to do in journalism, and it disgusts me, is, and we see it in every form of journalism, we see it in weather, politics, news, sports, is journalists will take the low-hanging fruit and whatever gets people going. I've told you this story before. I was sitting in a press box one time and a very, very famous journalist was in there. And he throws a question out to the entire press room. Give me something absolutely outrageous that the fans aren't going to be able to resist. And everybody thought he was joking. And the next day, that was a story. And we all knew that he didn't believe it. He was mocking it. And it was early in my career, and it just really put a bad taste in my mouth for journalists that I don't consider those people journalists. They're clickbait artists. They're provocateurs, in my opinion. That's not what I am. I'm a journalist. So there are times that I make people really upset with an opinion, and then at the same time, I'll literally take an opinion and have both sides be mad. That's when I feel like, okay, I'm probably being fair and doing my job. I will tell you there are areas of great concern on this team. There are areas that I am not as concerned about. And we're going to go through and really get into some details. So let me just say this. I want to reiterate, I said before the year, I don't think this is a playoff team. I didn't think the Raiders had the depth, and they had a lot too many young players. I stand by that. Nothing has made that change. And a lot of people criticize me after the Raiders beat the Patriots on the road. Don't you want to change your opinion? And I literally thought to myself, no, not even remotely interested in changing my opinion, and nothing's changed. I think the loss, good. So let's go back to the week one. The Patriots, and I said if the Raiders played the Patriots in November, I thought the Patriots would win. I don't even care if that game was at Allegiant, but because it was the first, I predicted to win it, and they got it. Every week the Patriots are getting better, which is what I thought they would do. I thought the Charger game, the Raiders were absolutely went in it and should have won it. Geno was just terrible. The defense was very, very good. If you're giving up less than 21 points, I have people all the time wanting to send me emails and tell me, this or that about the defense. You're friends with Max. You think you're friends with Adam Butler. You think this stuff. No, it doesn't have any bearing on my opinion. I take years of experience, and what are people around the league saying? That is the opinions that matter to me. And I watch the film, and I talk, and I find out what's going on. The defense has been very, very good. Then they go to the Washington game and down Jaden Daniels. And that was a game that they could have won, but they would have had to play their best game of the year. Geno was extremely good. The defense before they just ran out of steam was good, not extremely good, but decent. The wide receivers, the tight ends were very good, but Ashton couldn't do anything. The defensive line the offensive line was not good. They weren't as bad as it looked. That was the best defensive line they faced all year, and it's going to be one of the top 2 or 3. So understood with a young offensive line why that happened, and it is what it is. But then they come home and with an opportunity to beat the Bears, a very bad team. Now, I'm a firm guy. The record doesn't lie. You are, what your record says. And the reality is the Bears just beat the Raiders. That was a brutal loss for a few reasons. Number one, 2-game slide, coming home with a chance to really show your fans that the momentum had changed. The entire team responded, talking about offense and defense. Special teams did not. Not all of them on special teams, but for the most part, special teams did not respond, and neither did Geno. That was very concerning for me. I want to make this clear, and I know this makes people frustrated. I don't care. But in today's day and age, when you are critical of someone's play on the football field, people love to run and say you called them out or you hate them. That is the dumbest thing. We live in a society now that if I say I disagree with you, you assume I hate you, which is ignorant. If you believe that, that's complete ignorance about anything. If people can't disagree with you without you taking it as hate, then you're the problem, not them. But I was stunned at Geno's response. This is a long in the tooth veteran, a wonderful guy, a good leader who just completely dropped the ball. I have never thought that Geno was a top 5 quarterback. But that doesn't mean I don't think he's a good quarterback. And you saw it in week 1 and week 3, but you're sitting here now with nearly half of his interceptions from last year. I was asked at the beginning of the year how many interceptions I thought he would have in the season, and I said probably about 17. Because when you're throwing the ball in the National Football League, there are a lot of good schemes and a lot of good players. Everyone's going to throw interception. I didn't think it would be 7 in the first 4. That's brutal. I mean, he's on pace for what? 29? And that's brutal. So right now, I think the biggest concerning was how Geno responded in that last game. Now, in watching the film, I know I asked Pete about it on Monday, and Pete did not think that Geno was trying to force the ball. I totally respect Pete's opinion. But there were places to me where I felt like he had way too much confidence in his arm. And when you do, and you're trying to force the ball in there, that's what forcing the ball is. So I am in no way pretending that I know the game of football better than Pete, but I can tell you, I totally think he was trying to force the ball. If you go back and watch, and then Pete described it on Monday like it was forcing the football. You know, he has the big cannon of the arm. And the way the NFL today is now, there's really no contact during the week. There's hardly any contact in training camp. Guys aren't going full speed. And so throws that he makes in practice don't work in the game. I thought he would recover better because he is a veteran and he remembers back to what it used to be. And I thought when Pete mentioned that, I think Pete was making a valid point that, okay, but, you got to get people to understand practice speed isn't game speed. And so that's where I totally stand on this mountain. I think Geno was trying to force stuff. It wasn't that he didn't care. It wasn't that he was being anything other. I mean, I think he was trying, but that's where Geno has to be a smarter player. Now, having said that, I have told you I am very impressed with how ethereal he is. I am impressed with who Geno is as a man and how he handles his business. Do I expect him that this will be the pattern the entire year? No. But again, I was extremely disappointed And the more I watched the film, the more disappointed I was with how Gino responded. He had a great opportunity as a leader on this team to seize the moment. I mean, look at how Max responded. Arguably had his best game of the season when they needed it, when that was a game they could have stole. So that was to me a monster concern. And I'm just going to flat say it. Gino, if we're sitting here in November and the story is Gino is 1 week good, 1 week bad, this is going to be full panic. And what do the Raiders do? I asked Pete after the game about going with Kenny. I was not in any way implying going with him the rest of the season, but to me, and I asked a couple other people in the NFL, did it appear to you that Chip Kelly changed his play calling with Gino? And they're all like, yes, he did. And to me, because I wanted to make sure that it just wasn't me seeing things, to me, the moment you feel like, okay, I can't call what I want, maybe it's Gino's confidence, maybe he's just trying too hard to thread a needle, maybe he's trying too hard, whatever the reason may be. I can't sit here, I'm not a psychologist, but whatever the reason was, you go, in my opinion, and I know Pete disagrees, and I respect him immensely. But if I were the coach, and I'm not, and he's got championships, so my opinion in $12 will get you a small cup of coffee at Starbucks. But I would have gone with Kenny. I would have, for the game. I think you obviously have to change Gino's mindset. Now, on Wednesday, Pete was asked about Gino and, where is the gauge for deciding, okay, it's time to move on. And he said, I think his exact words were, he's never gotten to that point in all of his years with Gino. That's fair. That is one thing that I really do respect about Pete is there's no hyperbole with him. You heard Zeke Tresvant and I last week on the podcast together, talking about other coaches and how different they are. John Gruden, you asked him a question about Geno Smith. It's, let me tell you something. Have you ever listened to AC/DC's Back in Black? He would just totally, like a politician, change the subject and have everybody laughing. And then you realize later he never even answered the question. Josh McDaniels, well, we're going to go back and watch film. And, yeah. AP, yeah, it was BS. We got to get that BS fixed. And I mean, another bleep, 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 bleep. He would just go at it head on. God bless AP. And then Pete doesn't do the AP version, but he answers it directly and he's brutally honest and uses, he's so brutally transparent and honest. It's fascinating. I've only ever dealt with one other head coach even remotely like him. And it's I can tell you, I would bet as fans, even though you're frustrated with what he's saying, it has to be refreshing. And then you follow that up with, he says he's never been at that point. I will tell you this. I don't think there's a quarterback controversy. But Kenny Pickett's on this team. It's going to be here a while. And at some point, I think you have to go to Gino and say, listen, you're our 10-year vet. You're our guy. But if you're not playing at a certain level, we can't leave games. I think the Raiders, by changing the play calling and all that, even though they had a chance, cost themselves the best opportunity to win. I think going with Kenny there would have helped them with Gino to just be like, okay, I got to mentally get into this because they're not afraid to bench me if I'm playing bad. I think it would have sent an important message to your team for the one game. They didn't do it. I cede to them. I respect them. So let's talk about some things on film. Special teams, to me, there were a couple of guys that were good, but I was not impressed with special teams at all. And I'm going to say this to you right up front. I have not lost one bit of faith in Tom McMahon, the special teams coach. I know the respect that he has around the league. I talked with one, in fact, I'll just read it to you. I talked to one NFL executive today who said this to me. Doesn't surprise me, even with a Tom McMahon-led team, Raiders special teams struggling. I think that's pretty much 95% of the NFL with all the new special teams rules. It's a process. So as I talk to NFL people and found out that it's going on around the league, it doesn't make it any less. But it at least brought some clarity to it. That maybe pointing it out is not wrong, but maybe acting as if, and remember, I'm so in the bubble with the Raiders that I'm not aware of everything going on around the league. And so it brought a little bit of clarity to me, brought it a little bit more under the microscope, which I thought was fascinating. A couple things I want to talk about with Ashton Ginty that really hit me. So a lot of people were like, finally, Ashton is showing Ashton. Well, I'm going to tell you, Ashton, remember we kept telling you all camp what we were seeing from him? So this is the frustration with Geno. Week 2 and 4, Geno, we didn't see at all this offseason. Yeah, there was an occasional interception, and I would tell you that, but nothing like we have seen. The week 1 and 3 Geno is what we saw the entire camp. With Ashton, what you saw last week, we've seen that all camp. And Pete said it best on Wednesday. He said nothing's changed, and all I would shout is a big amen. It finally showed up in a game when his offensive line performed, but that's the Ashton we've seen. Pete said something on Wednesday that I hope Raider Nation picked up on when he was asked about utilization of Ashton and said, we need to use him as much as we can. I think they want to make him even more of the playbook. I love the fact that he's scoring touchdowns as a receiver. He's scoring them as a running back. I'd like to see a little bit more of him on wheel routes. I asked one NFL coach who's retired that watched the Raider game on Sunday. I said, tell me what you thought. He goes, man, I thought, Chip used him expertly. He thought, his exact words were, he goes, Chip can't control what Geno did. He goes, but I thought Chip had a brilliant game. And that's a retired NFL coach that you all know who he is, but said he thought he had a brilliant game. I would go one step farther. I do think that Chip had a brilliant game. I thought Patrick Graham had a brilliant game. I thought the only coordinator that didn't was Tom McMahon, but I have zero lack of faith in him. I want to remind you, Bobby Bowden, the legendary Florida State coach, said to me one time, if one or two players are not performing well, that's not on the coach, it's on the players. But when everyone is, it's on the player. It's on the coach. And special teams, you saw multiple, so that's on Tom McMahon, but I explained to you what the NFL thinking was. But with Geno, with the offense, it was only Geno. So that's not on Chip Kelly at all. And then I thought the defense was spectacular, considering where the holes Geno kept putting them in. But I thought that would be interesting to you. Just the thought process that is the Geno we've been seeing. And let's talk about one other thing about Geno where I think I noticed on this game, and I haven't seen this from him all of the preseason. So you may say, well, it was only because the offensive line played so well, but I disagree because I didn't see it in the offseason. So one area, and I'm going to talk to him about it. I want to see it one more week, so then I'll talk to him next week about it. But I told you before, he's not afraid of contact. And the way his body is built, he's little. He's little. Not Dylan Labe little, but he's little. But the guy's built of granite. And because he's so compact, he can take the hits. And prior to this last game, you saw him, I'm trying to get the word it was almost always accepted the contact. And you saw him in this last game, if it was a chance of contact or avoidance, he took the avoidance route. And I would really challenge you as Raider fans to watch this closely because you want this guy's running backs have about a shelf life of about 5 years. Some better, some less, but usually about 5 years. And in the NFL. And I think this guy has an elite ability. I think he was the best running back since Saquon Barkley. He was not where Saquon was coming out of Penn State, but I think he has the opportunity to be extremely elite. And if he does, that's a 7, 8, 9, 10-year guy. And I think he's built, has a body for that, but I don't think he'll get there if he doesn't do more avoidance. And that stood out on film. There were 3 times that I took notes on, and asked someone who I greatly trust and respect to go look at those plays. And I said, what stood out to you? And they said avoidance. I said, right, that's what I noticed too. And they said it was conscientious. There was one where his eyes were completely on the defender, but his feet going in a different place. Now, you say, why is that important? Okay, well, you're a defender, you're a linebacker, you're coming up on this stout locomotive. Not the biggest locomotive, but a locomotive. And he's looking you in the eye. Well, you're not watching his hips. Remember, when you play the belly button, because the belly button doesn't lie. The belly button tells you where they're going. Their eyes will lie, their hands will lie, their feet will lie. They can juke with their feet and go a different direction. The belly button never lies. And there was a couple times where, boom, he looks up, eye contact with the defender, bam, and it was avoidance. And that's something he's worked on. I can tell you that. So that's something that really stood out on tape to me. I want to talk about Jordan Meredith. Again, I thought he had one really, really bad play. We all know what play I'm talking about. But what really impressed me, and you can tell he is working on his craft, it is, now, picture this. When you snap the football, you have to take the football, elevate it to the quarterback's hands, and as soon as you move the ball, the defender can move. So there is a huge, because your legs are spread, you are in a very vulnerable spot. You have to spread, get your hands up, get your shins in front of your ankles, get up on the balls of your feet and engage. And then try to do it before the defensive lineman does. Now, you may say, well, that doesn't seem too hard. Yes, it does. You got to snap your hands, pull them up, and all that guy has to do is go forward. I thought his hand placement on Sunday, and going back to even when he, last year, I thought his hand placement was the best. And that just doesn't happen by evolution. That happens. I mean, that's perspiration, not inspiration. That's effort. And I thought that really paid off for him. I thought Jackson Powers Johnson, I told you before the year, and I have not backed down. If they kept him at center, I thought he would be an all-pro center. If they keep him at guard, I think he's going to be an all-pro guard. I told you that all along. I've not wavered from that. And I thought Jackson Powers Johnson absolutely looked like a dominating force. He played absolutely mad at the world. And in the past, where we have seen him channel his anger to penalty, he channeled his anger at his opponent, which is what the elite ones do. Even when he was not playing and struggling earlier, I told you, I still believe in this kid. I told you he had to play better, because he did. That's truthful. But there are days I have a bad day and I say, I've got to be better. It doesn't mean I don't believe in me, and I'm sure it's the same for you. And he was a dominating force. Now, I want to address one thing, because I keep getting so many emails. Why does Pete not like him? I am telling you all. If you choose not to believe me, that's fine. That's totally your right. Pete Carroll believes in this guy. But it's got to be the entirety of the franchise that believes in him. Everybody's got to be on the same page. And JPJ, when he gets his opportunity, has to seize the moment. Pete said on Wednesday he's going to start, which he should. If I would have been stunned if he hadn't. And this is where JPJ now has to use. Remember earlier in the year, the Raiders social media did a video when Geno got to town, and JPJ walks up and says, "Hey, I'm your starting center." And by the way, everyone, that really made Pete mad. No, it didn't. He's now got to make the decision. I am the starting right guard, and I'm never giving this position up. And I'm going to go right now. If he doesn't go back, now, let me just say this. I think he played at such an amazing level that when he goes against better defensive lines, he will not be as dominant. I'm not talking about that. That's more reality. But as long as you don't see the penalties and all of that, he better not come out of the starting line. He's a young player on a team that's not a playoff team. Let the guy just freaking play. Alex Kappa isn't going to be here in 6 years. If you develop JPJ, he will be. So let it go. And remember, Pete has bosses and everything else. And so you can't just always blame Pete or blame Brennan. And dadgummit, I took a ton of grief because I defended Brennan last week. That's off. Tremendous coaching job. But I thought JPJ was fantastic. And let's talk about the mule. I have told you before, one of the things that I really like about Delmar DJ Glaze the Mule, I really like this about him, is that kid is super smart. Now, let me just tell you, he is the guy, he is one of the warmest, kindest, wonderful people in the entire world. Forget if he were the lumber manager at Home Depot, every one of you who are dads would want your daughter to marry him. He is just a warm, pleasant, kind person. If you were to watch how he treats the equipment staff, the janitors, the media, the coaches, his teammates, there is nothing about him not to like as a human. And I don't say that because we're not looking for Sunday school teachers on your offensive line. But I say that because then when you add to it, he is a worker. To the best of my knowledge, I have interacted one time with his dad, I think, on Twitter. And it may have even been somebody else. I think it was his dad, but I may be wrong. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't know his family. I can tell you right now, having never met his family, those people are good people that every one of us want as neighbors. Because they raised a young man that knows how to be a gentleman and how to be a student of the game. And he has a work ethic that is very impressive. And one of the things that I love about the mule is the young man does not, you don't see him repeat mistakes. Now, I need to explain something here because this is really important. Does that mean you'll never see him make a mistake with his hands? No. But it means you don't see the exact same mistake. So like one time, you want to put your hands here. I heard a coach one time describe it as honeymoon, meaning pretend you're on your honeymoon and you want your hands here. I'm not going to describe it. You can figure out why. Because if you start to get your hands out wide, where you then can turn the body, that's a penalty. But if you get your hands here, now there's always holding. But if you're holding here between the shoulders and the breast area, they're not usually going to call it unless your hands are really extended and it's so obvious it's going to show up on TV. They're not usually going to call that. Occasionally, I've seen the mule where he'll get one hand in the right spot and one kind of over here. And if you get your hand behind the pad, that's a hold. And so, but you won't see it that way again. Now, the other time, it may be one hand low, one hand high. So I'm not saying you won't see a hand issue, but you don't see him repeat the same stuff. That tells you Brennan Carroll's coaching, and give him credit. And it also shows you that it's not just coaching. Guys got to listen. Guys have to listen. Do I think it was Delmar's best game? I don't, but I think it was probably his second or third best game he's had over his career. That's not true. Probably second, but close to first. You say even with a couple of mistakes? Yeah, even with a couple of them. There was one particular play where he got beat, and a couple of maybe one or two series later, the Bear defender tried to do the same move and got nowhere with Delmar. Those three guys, to me, very impressive watching the film. I'll also tell you that I was very impressed with Dylan. As poor as I thought he had his worst game as a Raider against the Commanders, I thought he was very good against the Bears. I liked, so let me share this with you. Delmar DJ Glaze the Mule is he's always smiling. This is a guy that loves life. This is a guy that understands I'm living my childhood dream. I'm getting paid a lot of money to play a game I absolutely love. And Delmar DJ Glaze, whether he's getting chewed by a coach, whether he makes a mistake, he does life with a smile. I would describe him as this. Psychologists would say he lives life with a glass half full. Dylan Parham is, to be a real successful offensive lineman, you almost have to have that mentality because it's hand-to-hand combat every play. Dylan is that way, but Dylan is warm. He's just a loving husband. I genuinely care for Dylan as much as anybody, and there's several people on this team I care greatly about personally. I do Dylan. When I talk and interact with him, he's very much smiling, but we have a warm relationship. If he doesn't know people, you would almost think he has a standing mad face. I know people use other terms. I'm not going to use those terms, but I had somebody once say to me, a media member, man, he hates me. He's always mad. And I said, who? They go, Dylan. I go, Dylan? I don't think he hates you because the person wasn't a jerk. Man, he never smiles. I mean, you have to understand that he's just a serious by nature. Doesn't mean Delmar isn't serious. He is, but he just is serious with a smile. Dylan will listen to details. Dylan is a keen listener. If I ask Dylan, hey, do you remember me asking you this question 2 years ago? Yeah, I do. And can probably tell me where I took a pause and put a verbal comma. Super smart guy. And he'll listen. He pays attention. When you're asking him a question, it's not, nope. He's quiet. And I thought Dylan's response was great. I felt terrible for Colton, who absolutely owned the Bears. He looked like a top 2 left tackle in the league. And he was fantastic. So again, that all stood out to me on film. And so those are some things that really stood out with me on film. And I want to end with this super quick. We have seen, whether it's Geno, special teams, offense and defense, and all the players play either at a very, very high level or an extremely good level, every one of them. Now they have to put this together because this is a Raider team that isn't, every injury now points back to the depth issues. Charles Grant is not ready. He's coming from William and Mary, and he's a rookie. And I cannot believe the criticism that Pete is taking for people. Why would you play Stone Forsythe? Just play Charles and take your lumps, all right? And get Ashton killed? And get Geno killed? No. When he's ready, if he was ready, I would 100% agree with all of you. Why in the world are you playing Stone over a Charles Grant who's ready that needs to take his lumps? He's not ready. Okay, Darian Porter, he's ready. To me, Darian's not out there playing a lot of minutes. I got an issue with that because I think he's going to make rookie mistakes, but I think he's ready. Grant isn't, in my opinion, and Pete agrees with me, by the way. But I don't have a problem with Stone. You're still trying to win games. You're still going to compete. You're still going to fight, crash, claw. If Charles was ready, then I would be echoing that criticism. But let me just say this. There's nobody on this schedule the Raiders can't beat now, including at Philly. But they have yet to play a complete game. That's on this coaching staff now. And it's not on Ole to get in Geno's head. Geno didn't say, okay, I'll go to the Raiders because I've got Ole. And Ole is a great, great quarterback coach. This is the best staff the Raiders have ever had, and it's not close. Great staff. But I would tell you, this is on Pete now. He's got to get into Geno's head. Geno, I can't have you doing that. And Colts are better than the Bears. Significantly better. I don't think they're as good as the Chargers, and I think it's close right now with the Patriots. I do. I don't think the Patriots are great, but I think they're getting better every game, and I like their team. If I had to pick today a head-to-head matchup at a neutral site, I would probably, I don't know. It would be a 50-50 toss-up to me. So this is a winnable game. It's one I predicted them to lose. And But this is a chance for that staff to go steal one. You know what? I don't know that I predicted them to lose it. I think I predicted them to win it because they were playing Anthony Richardson. Yeah, I did. So this is one that I think the Raiders can absolutely go steal and should. And should. I think you're going to see the best version of the Raiders. And you know what? You may say, Hondo, you're a half full guy. I might be. But the point is, we're not asking for anyone to do something we haven't seen. That is a monster deal. Remember when we talked about that in the offseason? It's one thing to say, gee, we hope this rookie can do this, which is where they were with Ashton. Now they've seen it. So it goes from faith to hope. I mean, from hope to faith. There's no position on this team now where you're at hope with the Raiders. Now you can legitimately believe and hold them to the standard of which they've performed. And if they don't perform there, see, that's why people were just so angry with Geno. If he was a rookie quarterback, nobody would have said a word. Yeah, it sucks, but you take your lumps with a rookie. Remember Peyton Manning. It's the problem. And predicted him to win. I'm going to stick with it. And Colts are better because they got rid of Anthony Richardson. Smart move. And I think the Raiders will respond. But it's on the coaches now. Pete's got to get into Geno's head. And like I said, I am a big proponent of Pete Carroll. I think it was, if you would have told me the Raiders could have had anybody, I would have picked Pete Carroll. Maybe one other guy. But I would have absolutely said Pete Carroll. I believe in him 100%. And I think the Raiders will respond this weekend. Thanks, everybody. See you tomorrow.